Hey, Zaka family! Zaka is launching an exclusive membership platform to provide you with career development workshops, coaching, community, and so much more. Go to ZakaConnect.com and sign up to receive information on how to access early registration and perks. Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you could get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is the founder and managing attorney at LVLUP Legal, Shermin Lakha. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. I'm going to be better after this interview because I know there's a lot of great things that you're going to be sharing with us, a lot of gems and talking about your journey and where you are now with in the legal world, which is phenomenal, right? The things that you have accomplished to get there. But before we actually dive into all of that kind of stuff, I always like to dive into the first chapter of your career, matter of fact, your life, your background. Where are you from? Where are you born? Like that kind of stuff.
Sure. So I was born in Florida, but I lived there for about 3 years before moving to the West Coast, to California, and then to Seattle, where I went to undergrad and law school. And then around the age of 22, I just always wanted to move to New York. I always wanted to be in like a hustle and bustle lifestyle. And I kind of intuitively always knew that this is where I needed to end up. So at 22, I decided to transfer over to New York and do an internship and the rest of my law school in New York. And I've been here ever since.
Mm-hmm. It was in hustle in LA, West Coast, the big that area?
I was too young. I moved to Seattle when I was about 12, but I think when the West Coast in Seattle, it was so tech focused. And something that I've always been inspired by is a little bit more of like the creative side of business. And that was really for me, being in New York and working with people who I think are the best in what they do and are really hungry to continue working.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. So Florida to the West Coast to the East Coast, New York, now where you reside and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So New York is the best place, I'm assuming.
Yeah, New York is honestly home for me now. When I think about exactly, I was like,
I had to make sure I'm a New Yorker myself. I was like, look, let me find out where you're gonna rest at, because some people, I really like Florida, but I'm glad you like New York.
That's a lot of New Yorkers right now. They really like Florida, but I think the transition. It's always just been about here. It's always about being here for me, and just being able to work with people who I align with and just are hungry.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And if I may ask, what is like your cultural background?
Yeah, so my parents were both born in India. They migrated to Pakistan, but they moved to the US when they were 18. So I kind of have a mix of both that, South Asian American background, but my parents moved here and they were, really hustling from the beginning. So that's really where I got a lot of my entrepreneurial spirit from. Like my dad moved here with, very standard immigrant story, like $200 in his pocket, was a cab driver, lived in a room with four other dudes, really had to go through a lot to get to where he is today. So when I decided to become an entrepreneur, which someone had coined me as like a lawpreneur, it was, my parents were very supportive of that because they knew that really is kind of where my background, like my blood is.
So you got to see that at an early age, that type of movement. It didn't scare you?
No, what's interesting about starting a business in a field like law, accounting, any of that, I get a lot of questions about what would really scare me. Well, the great thing about that is that you have your education that can really back you. When I started my business, I ended up quitting a job at a large law firm. So really how I got started in this is I had pretty much done everything you're supposed to do to get to the job that everybody wants to have. And when I got there, I just didn't really feel aligned with the work that I was doing. And so I just quit. And that's really shocking for somebody who had finally gotten that job that they've always wanted. But for me, my family was like, you know what, you can just get another job if it doesn't work out. I think the big fear in starting a business is, and I still get that question today, like, how do you even get your first client? That's, that was really a lot of the fear for me when I was starting is how am I going to grow this, scale this, and sustain this?
Okay. Now, going back to your childhood, like what was like a memorable moment in your childhood that kind of influenced you to be an attorney? I know you said your father was an entrepreneur and you got to see a lot of different hats he wore. Did he do anything in the law department?
So no, so I'm actually the first in my family to be an attorney. So people always ask me a lot of ask me for a lot of free legal advice. But no, actually, I'm the first in my family to have even a graduate degree. I think it's
Wow,
interesting.
congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's interesting how I ended up in law. I kind of honestly backed into the field. I was, ending my undergraduate career. I didn't really know what I wanted to do next, and just law just seemed like the next thing because I was a literature major, and I thought that it would be a good way to kind of just get into law school and see what I wanted to do next. I think during the process, I was kind of always feeling like, yes, this is something I like, but I really had an itch to do something greater. So it's interesting because I never thought I'd be one of those people who actually loved what I did and would find what I wanted to do. I always thought, okay, the law is something I'm going to do. It's my job. It's my career. I might have some side hustles. I might be able to do something creatively, but I
Yeah,
never thought that I could combine the two because historically that was just never the case.
yeah,
So that's actually kind of why invent I I founded Level Up is because I wanted to create a space like that in a field like law, which is traditionally very traditional. And so
mm,
it would kind of all meshed really well together. So no, I didn't really have anybody in my family doing that, but I think that's what allows you to be more of a pioneer in the
yeah.
area is that you just kind of step out and do something on your own.
And so it is obviously it is nervous at that point in time because no one else is in front of you. You can't really ask for guidance. Obviously, you have your teachers and things like that, or your coaches or mentors during the way. So at that point, like talk a little bit more about your educational background. Like where was school? How was school? That kind of stuff to becoming an attorney. And like when you first started off, like how was your career? How did your career start off? Like how did you launch this whole thing?
Yeah, so, I was actually never the most academic person. I always really hustled to get everything that I needed to get in order to end up where I am today. So for me, I knew that my grades were never going to be at the top. I was never the most book smart person, if you want to
Mm,
call it that. So what I would do is I would always try to meet the right people. What's interesting about attorneys is that it's very two-sided. There's that very
smart
academic,
move.
they just want to, yeah, keep their head down and do their work, and that's very needed. But there are those kind of like lawpreneur people who just really want to become an entrepreneur and build a business, and you can kind of see the difference. Many more people are that the former versus the latter. So when I was coming to New York, I knew I needed an internship, and so I remember I went to a law seminar and there were all these people like clamoring over the big law tables, like trying to get their one in with one of these attorneys. And I saw this other guy who was kind of standing on the corner. No one was at his table. He was selling some sort of software with as part of his business. And so I was like, all right, let me just go talk to this guy. I don't
Mm,
have time for all the other stuff. So I went and talked to him, and he's like, hey, actually, you know what? I have a Christmas party that I'm going to after this at the Attorney General's office. Do you want to come? And so I was like, sure. So him and I go
wow.
to this Christmas party, and I met the attorney general, and I had a business card made, and I was like, I really admire what you do. I'm really interested in an internship if you have one. And she's like, yeah, it's a really rigorous process. We've already picked our candidates, but maybe next year. I knew that I was never qualified enough from a grades perspective to get that externship or the internship. A week later, she emailed me because I gave her my card, and she's like, it really impressed me that you gave me your card. One of our interns dropped out. Would you like this role? So I was able to get that position without even really having to go through the application process.
Wow,
That
wow,
role
wow.
led me to the U.S. Attorney's Office, which I was there for 2 years in asset forfeiture. And then I was at Goldman Sachs. So I did the other side of, the financial regulatory side. It was 2012. So that was a big area of law. And then I finally got that big law job that I was telling you about. I was there for 2 years and then I quit.
Wow, wow. It's crazy how you saying it was just a business card, right?
Yeah, it was just a
And
business card. It was a
just a
timing
business
thing.
card. And just the fact that I like the story where you're saying that there was so many people like hovering around the bigger ones, the bigger organizations, but you found a way to just connect with somebody and have an organic conversation, and it led to an event, and then from the event, it led from you just handing out a business card. Like you would have never been in connection with those individuals if you didn't speak up. And I think a lot of the guests have that have come on the show have expressed the fact of like being an advocate for yourself, right? You could easily
Absolutely.
go in and have all the opportunities, but if you're not an advocate and be able to speak up for yourself, it obviously becomes a challenge. And that brings me to my next question to you: is like, what were like two challenges that you faced early in your career, and like how did you like overcome it?
So one of the biggest challenges that I have to face is being a minority woman who is actually very young and starting a law firm. So I started the practice at 29, and at that time I really didn't have any money to start the business. So what I did was I started marketing on social media, and this was around 2019. So it was just Instagram and Facebook at the time, LinkedIn a little bit, but there weren't really many law firms or attorneys marketing their services in social. I think with that, I got the type of clients that I was looking for, but a lot of the pushback I got was, how old are you? And a lot of times, a lot of the bigger clients wouldn't go with me because they really either wanted a man or someone they felt more comfortable or who they felt like could do the job. I think constantly, even 5 years later, I'm still always pushing against the grain with that. That's always been something that it's always just going to be the case sometimes in the type of business I'm in. And I've learned to just kind of overcome that. And then another big challenge that I constantly face as a founder is really delegating. So I have a team now. There's about 8 of us on the team. And I think it's one of those things where you feel like no one's ever going to care about your business as much as you do. But then that's what leads to burnout and actually a loss of opportunity. So I have all of these ideas, but I feel like I have to be the one to execute them. And a lot of times the timing is never there. So if I were, better at delegating those things, then a lot of the ideas I have in terms of how we build clients would able to be executed. What's different about my firm is that we don't do much marketing in terms of, like SEO. We do a lot of in-person events. We actually hold events for our clients to network. So we build out a community. So Level Up is not just a business, it's actually a brand. And that's what I think sets us apart. And I've always had that ethos in terms of how I wanted to build the business.
Mhm. And then now that we're jumping into the whole Level Up thing, first of all, congratulations on that, right?
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on that. Like, it seems that you got in the game and you got in the game. Like, you actually leveled up yourself on this whole process. Like, from school to the internship to handing out, like you said, handing out that business card. It seems like a lot of these things that were coming to you, you actually like stood in front of it and you actually like tackled it right now. So you got this law firm. Like, talk to us a little bit more about it. I know you were giving a little bit of insight on it, but like, when it started, like, what's the main goal and purpose? Like, you were just kind of talk about a little bit more, but
Yeah, so Level Up is a business and intellectual property law firm, and we offer representation to basically all underrepresented founders and businesses. So people that would generally feel like they couldn't have access to legal services, we want to provide them a resource to be a trusted legal advisor and also really be something that they can feel like they have access to in terms of our fees. So a lot of times people's biggest fear is, working with a law firm or an accountant or any of those professional services. Like, what is this going to cost me? Everyone thinks that working with an attorney is going to cost me thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm going to get hit with the scary bill. So that was something that I always wanted to differentiate. So we always started with flat fees. I started as a solo and I actually started as a virtual firm even before COVID because I knew a lot of the founders that I work with, they don't have any time. They work more reactively versus proactively. So I was taking Zoom consultations before COVID. And so we were kind of set up for success that way. And the flat fee model was something our clients really appreciated because they were like, all right, I can like budget for this and I can actually potentially know what my cost is going to be and feel like I'm getting the right service. In terms of that, that makes our business more of a volume business versus those like one big clients. So I had to expand. And after, I had 2 women come on the team as interns and they became full-time employees after that. And after I hired them on, people were coining us as the all-female law firm. And I had to kind of think back again. I'm like, okay, so this is something that people really resonate with. They love the all-female aspect. They love the fact that we're young, something they didn't before. So then I started thinking about how to build Level Up more as a brand. If you go to, you're in New York City, every other person is a lawyer. You can throw a rock and hit 10 attorneys, right? Which some people want to do. But, with us, I was like, how are we going to differentiate in this market that's extremely competitive? So, providing the flat fee services, building more of a brand and a community. So something that we do is we do about 10 events in the city for our clients. So whether it's a networking event for someone who's in branding to meet someone who's a beauty brand that needs that type of work.
Okay.
So you're part of a community and each of our clients can use each other as resources. And then we do one big event every year called Empire State of Law, which is a conference because for lawyers, because I don't want us to be, just some small firm on the wayside. I've always wanted us to be a big brand and be able to compete with other bigger law firms or boutique law firms out there. We're hitting our 5-year actually this year, and we decided to bring on men to the team, which has been a great transition in branding because I think with the all women aspect, those were just our best candidates that would apply. It was never, meant to be an all women law firm.
Okay.
But recently we just got men to apply, and everyone's like, "Wow, are you going to change from being the all women law firm?"
Years. It took 5 years to.
And we got some men to apply, but they just weren't qualified. They just weren't qualified candidates.
Oh, that's right. Snip, gotta go. Yeah, I got
exactly.
you. Fellas got to step their game up. Okay, I got you.
Right. So then these guys applied, and they're our first males on the team, and I think that's actually more aligned with who we are. It was always about representing all underrepresented people. Right now, we're actually an all minority firm, which wasn't just happened that way.
Yes.
And so it's been great so far.
You're making some significant headway with a lot of these things and not knowing that you're actually doing it. But then when you actually sit back and think about it, you're like, wait, hold up. We actually did that, like without even knowing that we're doing it. So in this scenario, you're breaking a lot of these stereotypes. And I
hope so.
I feel so. And I know our listeners are going to feel that way. Like, so how do you feel like being a proud, like, female founder and like your contribution to breaking like some of these older stereotypes when it comes to like the legal profession, right? You're like, and what would you recommend to someone like who's aspiring to be in this profession to kind of keep on pushing that boundary?
So I think I'm at that stage where I'm finally realizing that what we've done has really inspired so many different legal professionals, their students. And we've been hosting these, lattes with LVLUP where we're having coffee and meeting with a lot of these aspiring students and attorneys in a variety of professions about how we're able to do this. But I'm still in that phase where I still feel like I have more to do. So I'm still hungry. So I'm in this, kind of weird conundrum where I'm like, I have a lot to do still, but there is a lot that we've done. I think when it comes to people who kind of want to venture into this field, it goes back to originally what you said, being fearless. I think a lot of people have imposter syndrome. If you're a founder, you have to actually have the opposite. Like I have the opposite of imposter syndrome. I probably think I'm more qualified to do things than I actually am. I will put myself out there and I am not shameless. I'm shameless when I do it. And I think if you want to be a successful founder, you have to understand that. I also think a big thing that founders don't understand is that a lot of what you do is sales. You have to learn to sell yourself, sell your business, sell your brand, and you have to learn how to do that well. So figuring that aspect out is really important. I remember when I was, in 2019, when I had just started, I got invited to attend Forbes 30 Under 30. So I went to the summit and I was, it was just so many people. I was walking around. I'm like, maybe I'll get some clients. I don't really know. And there was, the big seminar day, and there was a hallway with a lot of people who had like booths and stuff, but I couldn't afford a booth at the time. So I went on the app and I said, okay, I'm holding free legal consultations in that, booth area. You can come find me and sign up. So I literally pulled out a cocktail table, sat there and made a sign. I went to like a Kinko's and made a sign, and I started taking consultations and I got clients that way. And I had someone take a picture. I found some guy. I was like, can you take a picture of me sitting here? And I did that. So, there's always things you have to do. You just take an opportunity and you're like, all right, what can I do in this space to make it worth my time? So when I have, a lot of people who are like, you go to networking events all the time. How do you make things happen? I said, if you're going to go to a networking event, don't waste your time. Raise your hand. If there's a question being asked at a panel event, raise your hand, ask a question, introduce yourself, just make it worth your time. Don't just say like, okay, I'm going to try to talk to one person, because when you're in the car on the way home, you're like, that took 2 hours of my time. I didn't really get much out of it. Like go with intention and just make sure that you do that. Otherwise the networking gets really exhausting.
Yeah, you're hitting on some heavy stuff right there. You are hitting on some heavy stuff right there. I truly admire your father for giving you a lot of these insights. This the entrepreneur stuff. You like I set up my own table, my own chair, started taking my own pictures, and started giving free stuff right there. That's because you could go to that event and be like, well, I guess I can't really be in this hallway, right? I'm not at that level to be there. But you found a way to find a way to be in there. And that's just you not giving up, you know? And I know that was like
Exactly.
a small that obviously that was a big achievement, but I know there's a lot more achievements in your career. Could you kind of speak about like a memorable, success story? That one to me was good. I'm inspired by that story right there. I'm like, look, hey, look, the next time I'm in a situation like that, I'm just set up my own table, my own chair. But what's it like a memorable
Might
story?
as well. I think a big one for us was doing our first Empire State of Law event. So we were always trying to really compete with a lot of these premier law firms. And we were like, how do we do this? And somebody's like, you need to do kind of a panel about emerging areas of practice in New York and, bring in the lawyers there and make it an event. And I, had to make it much larger than I thought. I'd never hosted an event like that. So it was a big risk to do that. So it was a 2-day event. We had 30 days to plan it, the team and I, and we have enough work to deal with.
Yeah.
So we rented venues, we got, students to attend, we got panelists, and it was 5 panels. It was this whole thing. We did a boat cruise on the Hudson. And I think that event really is what, made us known in the legal market. And I think with that, it was a bit of a risk because I had to put all that money up front. I didn't know if anyone was going to buy tickets. I didn't know if anyone was going to come. But I
That's always
think
the scary part.
that's the scariest part. But for me, I'm like, I think I do everything with intuition. So as hard as that is to kind of, think about like intuition, like even when I was talking to that guy at that seminar, the one that was just by himself, I don't know why I did that. I just did the Forbes event. Sometimes I'm like, I'm going to go to this event. I don't know why I'm going to it, but I think there's something going to come out of it, or I know I'm going to make something come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just figure that out. And I think it goes back to being fearless. And also, I think a lot of times if I was with somebody at that Forbes event, they'd probably have been like, don't do that, don't do that. Oh my gosh, don't do that. I don't listen to that. I'm like, people don't care that much about you. Trust me. You can do what you need to do and get where you need to get.
Closed mouths don't get fed.
Exactly. Closed mouths do not get fed.
Yeah, that's it. And if you want something, you got to go after it, and
exactly.
You have that, and you're not going after it in a way. And I admire how you're speaking of these things. You're not going at it in a malicious way. Like you want something, like you're going to these people hoping that they give you something. You're just trying to make that connection. And it's just your personality, your work ethic, your educational background. It's not like you're not bringing those things also to the table. So when you have that conversation, it's not like you're like, well, I'm just here. It's more like I'm here and I also have this as a requirement and some qualifications behind me. And past guests have said, like, if you're going to get to that place in time, just make sure you also have things lined up for you, that you're not just going to someone trying to get an opportunity and not have your things somewhat aligned, because everyone is going to be good in this area, in that venue, in a sense. So it's important to know, how do you stand out from there? So I can see that. And how many people attended, if I may ask?
Were they my free consultations or just the event itself?
No, the event itself. The free consultation, I'm assuming it was a line of people. But in regards to the event itself, how many people?
Oh, the Empire State of Law, about 200. So that ended up being really well. And we're doing our 3rd year this year. So last year was even better. This year, I'm hoping to be even better. Now we're looking at sponsorship. And it's really just, I think, everything I do is also about giving access. I think people know a lot of lawyers, but they don't know how to reach them. They don't know how to access them. And I think that's something that I found a lot of times. And there's a fear associated with calling a lawyer. You just don't know what you're going to get. And a lot of times, again, what you're going to get billed. So, mentioning it's a free consultation, mentioning our fees are all on our website. And we keep a lot of transparency. I think that's a really big offer that we have that a lot of other attorneys and businesses don't. Very transparent fees, so people know what they're getting into. No one's wasting their time with anything.
Mm-hmm. And earlier, I like the transparency stuff. Like how you have some legal law stuff. They're like, you got to call us, and you're lucky if you get the call, and then it goes back and forth. But you talked about earlier in our conversation, we were talking about just how you had like an all minority group at one point, but let's talk about like a lot of your colleagues, Gen Z, millennials, like there's a whole group, right, of individuals. And I know that obviously wasn't by design, but you know, when you were talking about in regards to your firm, but like, what is like one of the advantages do you think that you bring to the table when it comes to your firm?
So having mostly millennial Gen Z, I think it really resonates with a lot of the growing businesses. So a lot of the new brands and businesses are millennial and Gen Z, and we align our branding to speak to them. And that's why I market on social. So having people who are Gen Z is great because they know exactly how to do that in a way that resonates with the new businesses. So I'm always thinking about, 5 years ahead. Those Gen Z, people who are on TikTok right now are the ones in 5 years that are probably going to have the businesses, and they're going to be have known about us for quite some time. I think there's a statistic that it takes, I think, 27 times for someone to see you before they actually really resonate with you. So that's what we try to do. So for us, in terms of our social media, our following, all of that, it's never about the number. It's about the quality, and like the people who follow us just really enjoy what we have and what we bring. And I think that is about being, millennial, Gen Z, being able to serve those types of clients because they actually want to work with people. It's interesting because, I'm a millennial, but Gen Z is they're very much in tune with who and what they want to do in terms of their work life. And
Yeah.
so when it comes to dealing with someone they don't feel aligned with, if it's someone that's, not necessarily understanding their business or brand in the way that they want to, they won't work with them. So for me, I'm still in the service business. I'm always looking to serve clients. So being relatable is important. So I think it's beneficial. I do think there's a lot more like, I think this might be controversial, but like the things I had to do to get to where I am, I feel like a lot of it is like, they have all these things where they like definitely have very strong boundaries, whereas millennials had no boundaries. We would work all the time. We're just grateful to have anything. They have
Yeah.
boundaries, and I guess it's good.
Yeah.
It's like Europe.
The generations is always every generation is just so different in regards to their work ethics and the way they do certain things. So it's always amazing to kind of see that kind of pan out for in an industry and being like, okay, what do the Gen Zs do and how do the millennials do and the Gen X? Like it's so crazy to see that all in works.
Yeah.
Now,
They definitely keep me young though. They keep me on the trends. I know what's going on. I feel pretty cool then, so it's fine.
That's like, I'm glad you mentioned something like TikTok. Like obviously things like that, like some of the older generations probably wouldn't even connect to that, but like who knows? Like there's a lot of organizations and companies that use TikTok to kind of advertise their stuff.
Yeah, we do.
So
our biggest following is actually TikTok.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you're getting clients from TikTok. Like who would have thought that, right? We thinking back to newspapers and magazines, right? Yellow pages. These people are putting stuff up on TikTok, and before you know, you got 4 or 5 clients pulling up to your spot.
Exactly.
That's amazing. How do you stay up with the trends? I know we're talking about TikTok right now, but like, how do you stay updated on like the industry trends, and how does your knowledge benefit your clients?
So I definitely try to. Yeah, so I definitely try to stay up on what's really happening in the market. So, for example, when NFTs became popular, I was like, all right, this is going to be a thing. Obviously, there's a lot of, money in the space. There isn't a lot of lawyers in the space. So in January, I think it was 2021 or 22, I would like sit up at night and I was doing YouTube education on how to buy an NFT, how to resell it. And I was making content about it because there wasn't a lot of people buying it. And I would buy women-led NFTs. And so I was talking a lot about it in different spaces. And then we were actually the first law firm to launch an NFT and make it more of a community-based NFT. And so I learned the process. And through that, I was able to get a lot of Web3 businesses that are still operating today. Definitely the market has changed, obviously. But I think that looking at different things that are happening and being like, okay, where can I fit in or where can the business fit in? to serve these types of new and emerging practice areas. Obviously, AI is, a huge area, but I think a lot of law firms have been kind of sitting on that topic for quite some time with privacy laws and everything.
Yeah.
But we brought in a new attorney to handle all really influencer and agency law. So that's been a big one. So, offering a bulk contract review for a lot of these agency deals and influencer deals. I know that it's like a lot of times people get touchy about it, but this is the new wave of marketing. Brands and businesses spend a lot on these content creators, and I think it's like the second biggest industry out there. So being able to figure out how to work with these clients, negotiate on their behalf, has been a huge business model for us. So just figuring out what's really trending and what's really going to be growing and scaling, and if it's underserved in any way, how can we be in there?
And since trends are always, it's hard to kind of stay up on these trends on top of all the things that you're doing, right? There's so many trends that are popping up every day. And you're like, okay, all right, so I got to switch this. But I admire the fact that you're saying that if there's something you're like how you said about in your event, how you're talking about like things that are arising where legal stuff might be of need. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, TikTok is one of those things. Now people need lawyers for TikTok, to make sure that they're being represented the right way. But it's a field that someone never would have thought of, right? But like how you did with the NFTs, you did the research and you start to kind of figure out like, okay, and I like that you're trying to be ahead of the game with that kind of stuff. Now, when it comes to like your clients, I know you do if you have a role like seeking like clients that are seeking investments. Like, what strategies do you like and put out there to kind of help your clients do like searching for that investment?
So that's actually an area that we're trying to scale a little bit more. So what I've done is I partner with a lot of accelerator programs. And so those are all clients that are seeking and raising investment. And so I really specialize in that area just through experience in my previous roles. I think a lot of times when you're raising investment, it's a lot of, you're getting these checks in and you're like, okay, but what do I do next? Like, how do I actually bring this and scale this and report to my investors, and what does this all actually mean? There's a lot of knowledge out there. There's a lot of information out there, but not a lot of practical knowledge. And as much as you can watch Shark Tank, it's very difficult. So that's really where I actually specialize in that area. And like a lot of people, I think that's a millennial thing. We're all like very much like watch Shark Tank and we're startups. Gen Z is not like that. I think it's just like this one group of us that are all workaholics, like want to make it, locked in. And so that was an area that I found that a lot of, especially women who don't obtain investment very easily, would like that type of guidance with someone they can relate to. But that's something that I do specialty for a lot of female founders in the through accelerator programs. What we're really trying to scale right now are our trademark services. So we offer that on a flat fee. A subscription model, which we've been offering for a reduced hourly fee, but like it's consistent monthly. And then our packaged contract review for larger clients. So I think from the business perspective of where I started, it was a lot of just working one-on-one with particular clients, which we still do. But like, how do we scale that in a way that I can continue to hire, bring on more people and serve more? Is just doing the items that I know have the ability to have high volume and, give more access to more people.
Now, I'm just curious, right, at this point in time, how are you juggling this? Like, how are you in your day-to-day life? Like, how are you promoting your legal business and still have time to like kind of help service your clients and your hobbies? Like, it sounds like you're doing a lot.
I'm doing a lot, trust me. So that's actually one of my biggest struggles is that I say yes to a lot of things and I'm always everywhere and it's a little exhausting, but I do have an incredible team. So even though, like you were saying, like it feels like I have done a lot to really change the perception of lawyers in the game, it's really a team effort. I would not have been able to do it on my own. There's plenty of really strong, amazing minority women that run their own solo practices. What I've done is create opportunity. And someone told me that there's very few people in the world that actually create opportunity for others. And that's what I really try to do. So it's the team. I have, an amazing team of 4 other attorneys, 3 amazing interns. We have someone who helps with social. We have, VAs that are international. So there's a lot of moving pieces. I still practice and I still do a lot of the branding and business development. And I'm still sometimes the one who's editing the TikToks at night. I do it all. But I think
you
when
better
it comes
go
to me,
off.
I know, right?
You are truly
I
leveling
think
up.
But for me, when it comes to like life priorities, everybody could work a million hours a day, but you have to kind of have like your North Star and your priorities aligned. For me, elevated experience is everything. So if there's a new experience that I can have in my personal life, that's always, one. And then, family, friends, those are actually to me above work. So if you have your, what really fills your cup aligned in the right way, then when you do work, it just makes it feel like there's more to life than just, making everything about your job. Because really at the end of the day, everything I do is about the brand and level up. That's going to be my legacy. That's really what I've built and wanted to, my entire life. So even for example, everything I do from like going to the gym to post my own content to going to an event, it's
Mm.
really just to make sure that I'm being a positive influence and an aspiration to a lot of other people who want to do that type of lifestyle too. In addition to me very much enjoying it as well, but it's a mix of things.
Wow. You really shed some light on this podcast today. One of my last questions I'm going to give to ask you, right? As a leader, because I'm going to go back to that, because you are a leader. A lot of things that you're doing, you're helping out your clients, you're building, and you built from the ground up by speaking up, like you said, raising that hand. Like as a leader in the legal field, like what advice would you give to a young immigrant female who's listening right now to the podcast? And here's about your story and your journey. What are some of the things that you would recommend to help them in their career path?
I think definitely just being fearless. I think there's so much opportunity out there for anybody to either, join a firm, start a firm, or just really do whatever they have always wanted to do. And I think the best thing about it is that social media has created a platform and accessibility to do it. A lot of times before the launch of social media, people would have a dream and they have no idea how to reach anybody or do anything about it. When I started, I was able to leverage that to actually scale and build a brand and get all my clients. So if somebody is listening to this and wants to build a business or a brand, I would say have a plan, and not just a business plan, but like a plan of as to why you're doing this and what you hope to accomplish, and really follow your intuition, but definitely utilize all your resources. You can't
Yeah.
be afraid. You can't be shy. You need to, post your TikTok on TikTok. It might not do well. You might get 4 views, but it really does take all of those little steps on a ladder to kind of get to where you need to be. I had the accelerated version because I run at an accelerated speed, but there's always more for me to happen. I'm gladly happy for some other competitor to make me take a look and be like, okay, someone else is doing something out here that I need to maybe step it up a little bit.
Well, you definitely are. It's not even just stepping up. You're actually leveling up every single time. So
Leveling up,
kudos to
yes.
you. Kudos to you with your firm. That is a definitely very honorable mention right there. Like being at the age that you're at, being dedicated and driven. Shout out to your parents for giving you that guidance in the beginning, teaching you kind of subliminally, like, hey, look, this is the entrepreneur life. You took that information and that understanding of what your parents were doing back then and kind of like driven it into like your education and also into your life. And it's about giving and helping. And I love the fact that your firm has kind of broke a lot of those like stereotypes, having an all female group at one point, having, all minorities. Like that's just beautiful, and you're not even shooting for that. It just so happens to happen. So kudos to you on that. Thank you so much for your time and just sharing a lot of this information with us on this podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all ours. And I just want to let the listeners know, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Shermin, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed Zaka wherever you listen to your podcasts.